The FEMA situation is in way worse shape than the public knows. I have a bill out there that would remove FEMA from Homeland. It would basically restore it to the way it was before 9/11. It would give it back to the White House, which would shrink the agency, because right now FEMA is doing all of the grants for the other 22 agencies plus in Homeland. We want to know, why is FEMA doing all this immigration stuff? Is they're being directed by Homeland General Counsel to run all of those grants. And so if it looks like FEMA is not as good as they used to be at response and recovery, it's because they've become a bloated grant agency because of Homeland's direction. So Byron Donalds and I have that bill to remove it from Homeland and give it back to the president. In the Senate, Tom Tillis and Senator Padilla have that bill. We have a bipartisan, bicameral bill to do that with FEMA. And I know giving up an agency is always hard, but I'm really worried about trying to save FEMA. What's going on in Homeland, there are discussions right now about breaking FEMA apart and giving pieces to other agencies. I don't know how that's going to make things more efficient. FEMA needs to get better at response. There needs to be reform. Block grants is something that we should look at. Some states will do better at block grants than others. The governor can request it. If approved by the president, we can block grant money down. But if you think for a second that the federal government doesn't have to do any response, I can tell you that's not the case. Yes, Florida and Texas way more prepared than a Alabama or Mississippi just based on capability. The emergency management departments in Texas and Florida are gigantic. But if you look at where the majority of the disasters have been from 2011 to 2021, California is number one at 25. But the next states are Mississippi at 22, Oklahoma at 22, Iowa at 21, Tennessee at 20, Louisiana 18, Alabama at 17. Those states will go bankrupt if they don't have full reimbursement for the federal government. Not only bankrupt, they won't be able to respond. FEMA doesn't have assets. FEMA coordinates other assets from other agencies, a lot from DOD, and they move these pieces of equipment into the area. And so someone is going to have to do that. There's going to have to be an agency that does it. If we're not going to call it FEMA and we're going to call it the National Office of Emergency Management, I don't care. But there's going to have to be an agency that can coordinate a federal response when a disaster is such that it overwhelms state capacity. So we can't just push that down to the states. Number two is FEMA has paused all grants, not just getting rid of BRIC, but they've paused all reimbursement to all states. Calling it an additional review, it's a distinction without a difference. They have paused all of it. Not only have they paused it, there's discussions about getting rid of certain categories. Right now we have categories of reimbursement A through G. A and B are immediate needs and debris removal. But the others are roads, bridges, parks, and beach renourishment. They're talking about getting rid of those as categories of reimbursement. I can tell you that all around the Gulf of America and up and down the East Coast, South Carolina, North Carolina, if they can't get their beaches reimbursed under Category G, then there's a major tourism problem in all these states. This is something that we got to be talking about. I think there's a disconnect between the White House and Homeland. And we know there's a lot going on. I don't think this is getting the attention it deserves. This isn't just about funding FEMA in the Homeland budget. It's about engaging with the White House and Homeland on what the plan is here for FEMA. More money goes to red states than blue states. It's not even close. And so this should be a bipartisan issue.